So we optimized our proving ground in preview, and then I took that optimized proving ground from preview, saved it as the JPEG. Preview automatically saves. And then I opened up my Photoshop of it. And then I simply drag the preview image, which is just a flattened JPEG, and I make it the top layer of my Photoshop. So there it is. And I just keep it as a smart object. It's kind of a way of keeping it safe. And then I save my Photoshop again. So what did preview optimization do? It changed it from this to this. It's a subtle adjustment, but I think it helps everything feel like it's lit and occupies the same space. And it also doesn't look like nighttime as much anymore. It feels more like dawn, and so it doesn't feel like I'm hiding anything from the viewer, right? Which a lot of concept art does. Concept art is often kind of digitally painted or composited on top of black so that things can meld into shadows really easily. And that can look kind of cheap. So I save my Photoshop file. I have my JPEG file. I am ready to go to the proving ground in Canvas and post the first requirement. And that first requirement is the image that shows a creature in a landscape. If you want to look at the VFX breakdown of how this compositing works in something like feature film, because a lot of you thought your creatures would work good in kind of fantasy movies. They shoot the setting, they throw in the 3D model like the maquette, and then they do the full rendering and compositing of textures, which often come from things like slugs, and starfish, just like we did in order to make it look as real as possible. And the crab creature, here we see it. And this can also be done because we did concept settings, right? So you might have a concept art that's a broken down city, right? And they were actually able to build that set, a broken down city with all this greenery everywhere. But then, because they need to make it a broken down city that has giant mutated insect monsters, they needed to composite in things like spider webs and nests and like mucus trails and all of that. And so that's composited in, just like we composited in mountains and clouds and trees and textures into our concept settings. So just a way to see how it all comes together. But now here are the requirements. So this is actually rubric requirement number 2, but it's the first thing we post because it's the image. And so I find it. There it is, the JPEG. And I drag and drop it in. Now this is going to be a big image, right? And we want it to be a big image that allows us to do more with it. More pixels means we have more versatility. It's raster, so the pixels limit what you can do with it. But I'm going to shrink it on the screen so it's not too huge for a presentation critique, about halfway. Maybe a little bit more than halfway. And I'm at 100%. Here we go. A little more than halfway at 100% on my browser Zoom. So that's the first requirement that we can post, but it's actually rubric requirement number 2 because we need to pay attention to all 3 of these rubric criteria. So number 2 was, did we place our PNG creature onto a landscape background in a way that utilized a common light direction and accommodated for the angle of your creature's anatomy? Does the lighting make sense? Does the pose and where the creature especially is making contact with the landscape, does that make sense? To the best of my ability, yes. Good, that one's good. Check, full marks. The next one is this. Make sense of the data. Did we accurately identify the resolution, the pixels per inch, and the physical format, also known as the print size, while identifying which of the 2 main types of digital art resolution your creaturescape is sized for? So what are the 2 main types of digital art resolution? What are the 2 you need to know? And what is 300 for? Printing, yes. Yep, but you're right. Yes, it's 300 and it's 72, but they're different. 300, that's for printing. Printing is always a higher standard than what's on screen. For screen, it's 72. So print and screen are the two types of digital art resolution. Okay, so how do we find that out? What if I don't have Photoshop and I can't go to image size? Well, I can just open that up in Preview, that JPEG. Because we compressed the JPEG, but we didn't ever change its pixels. It takes up less memory because it doesn't have layers. It has a pattern recognition algorithm for the pixels. It kind of rounds the numbers down, but it doesn't change the number of pixels. This is at the same resolution as our PSD. So how can we check it? We go to Tools and we go to Adjust Size. That's image size in Preview. And this will tell me, in inches, this is 67 inches by 47 inches. That's a lot of inches. Is it bigger than 8 by 10? Yes. But what is Preview's default resolution type? You can see that under resolution. It's 72. So is that for print or is that for screen? That's screen. How do I check if this is good enough for print resolution? What I need to do is uncheck resample image. Resample means it will change your pixels. It will take them away or it will invent new ones. I want to see what these pixels, the ones that I carefully controlled, what they can express. So now when I uncheck resample image, I'm going to change its resolution to the print resolution, which is 300. And when I do that, it changes the height and width for me because I have my proportions scaled. And it is 16 by 11 and a half inches. So I actually am going to write that down. Or here, I'll make a screen grab of it just so you guys can remember. But that is what I need to type into my post. I don't want you to just post a screen grab. That kind of takes memory away from your canvas allotment needlessly. And posting a screen grab doesn't show you understand the data, right? So let me post. This is rubric requirement number 1. Again, the proving grounds aren't difficult. They're just nitpicky. So I find that, went to my desktop, this screen grab. I'm going to post this, but then I'm going to write it. I'm just going to post it so you can understand why I'm writing what I'm writing. Okay. So this shows me the physical inches. And I'm going to write that first. So usually you give the horizontal width first. So 16.1, and then inches is just quotations, the double apostrophe, by an X, 11.51 inches, and then at, and you can say at, or you can use the at sign, 300 pixels per inch, PPI. Okay, looking at the rubric, that does the first things. We accurately identified the resolution. The pixels per inch was 300. We accurately wrote down the physical format, the print size, right? But we haven't yet identified which of the two main digital resolution types this qualifies for. So is this good for print or is this good for screen? Print, yes, because it's larger than 8 by 10 at 300 pixels per inch. And I wouldn't give, unless I've really worked with that client a lot, I wouldn't usually give them any resolution that isn't 300 or 72, right? So if I take my 350 pixel per inch one and I give it to the client, I convert it to 300 pixels per inch. That just means it's larger than they need. Because again, we're not resampling. We've only ever resampled with our sketches, things we don't mind getting blurry because they never get used in the final. We never resample our finished work. Okay, because that just blurs it out. So good for print. Why? Because it's over 8 by 10. And we have time to really learn this and understand this. If you don't get it right the first time, I'll tell you how you can improve it, what you need to look for, what you need to state. So as long as it's over 8 by 10 at 300, it's good for print resolution. So make sure you state that. It's the most common error made in this proving ground. Okay, remember, you don't need this. You just need to understand this. And it gives you this. All right, the third requirement's pretty fun and a little bit different and relates to the writing that's required for the field of digital media. And as I said to the digital class yesterday, when you're talking about marketing and you're talking about, using digital media for commercial purposes, whether it's graphic design, whether it's illustration, whether it's marketing, BS is a big part of the job. But BS in like the most thoughtful way possible, right? So what does creative problem solving and the badge call BSing? It's being able to frame novel problems in familiar terms. So, did you explain how your creature is intended to interact with its environment in your post, accounting for atmospheric and practical concerns? How does your creature breathe, shelter, and eat in this environment? So, if I get to talk to like the art director or the client and I'm pitching my concept design, both of a setting and a creature, and I'm like trying to get more work from them, right, for the He-Man live action movie, I'm not just saying, here's my work, I thought it looked cool. Yep, have a good one. I'm saying, I was really thinking this would work for Skeletor. It's about the misty mountains. I thought there'd be a moisture-rich environment, so I thought like insects would really do well being able to like walk above the water droplets and the bones and the crevices. They have lots of places to hide. They would need big eyes because it's dark. I would really try to make the connections why I'm more thoughtful about my work than the other submissions they're getting. Does that make sense? Even if they're already employing me full time. Because if they use more of my work, then I'll get to have more creative agency within that company. I'll get paid more. I'll get to do more fun stuff. That's how it works. Well, yeah, you just play towards your strengths, right? Yeah. So in the writing, you want to make those connections. Now, I don't want you to write forever. So if you look at those examples given, I don't have one immediately there. But if you look at these, it only needs to be a few sentences. But those sentences need to connect the creature design to the environment, right? So again, why is this not enough? Well, because we need to see the evidence of the animals living there, nesting there, eating there, hiding there. And so that's why you need this stuff, right? Exactly. So I'll demonstrate, but really this is all on you. To how do you make a compelling argument for your creature in your environment in the written form? Because anything you say as a media professional is pretty much immediately forgotten. So unless you can document it in an email, in a writing, somewhere with your submission, it doesn't really matter. That's why pitches in creative media, they have to have so many different forms. Like the short form, the long form, the full submission. Okay, so requirement 3, rubric requirement 3. I like to give my creature a name at this point because I feel if I give the creature a name, though it's not a requirement of the rubric, it helps you think about it. It helps it stick in the mind of the client. And you can think of me as the client if you want, that you're pitching to. So what would I name this? Let's see.